Good evening, everyone that's joined us this evening. I'm Frank Sweeney. I'm the deputy mayor. The mayor is out of town this evening, as well as Councilors Davis and Fury, but all excused absences for this evening. We're down to a skeleton crew, but we have no public hearing, so I think we're in pretty good shape. With that, I'd like to call this meeting to order, and our first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And Oliver, if you'd like to lead us, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Our first item on the agenda this evening is communications from the public, and this is communications from any member of the public that wishes to address council, as long as it's not a public hearing matter, and since we have none, it's free form, so come on up.
Good evening, council members. My name is Carter Unger, 2375 Mountain Shadows Drive, and I'm here to speak to you on behalf of the Lions Club of Whitefish. In the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of growth in our membership, and many of you may be aware of the great work we do with eyesight and hearing and glasses and aids, as well as the flag program where we set up flags during certain holidays. But specifically tonight, I wanted to speak to you about a recent program that we're now in our second year. And that is, we have a very generous homeowner has allowed us the use of their garden just outside of Columbia Falls. It's a 1,700 square foot garden, and we grow food there. Sorry that I'm looking at my notes. And we have been having some blessed harvests, huge amounts of food. A lot of the food goes to Land to Hand, both in Whitefish and in Sioux Falls. And we also grow potatoes and onions that specifically and directly go to Whitefish School District, which is exciting. We do tomatoes, squash, zucchini, green beans, peas, lettuce, chard, spinach, radishes, beets, carrots, onions, garlics, and potatoes. And to give you an idea, in our last harvest, we just recently had about 300 pounds of onions, countless tomatoes, at least 5 gallons of radishes and green beans, and an entire pickup load of potatoes, again, which go to our awesome students at Whitefish School District. We are having another harvest coming up on October 16th at noon, and we would love anybody from the audience or any of staff or any of our amazing council members to join us if they happen to have the time. It's going to be at noon on October 16th. The location is 237 Tyler Farm Lane, Columbia Falls. And I'll send an email to the staff in case you want to get that address. But if you are able to come and see this great work and watch this bountiful harvest of healthy food come out that goes to some of our most in need citizens, we'd love to have you. If you can make it, bring a water, a shovel or trowel if you have it, and gloves. It will be weather dependent. But anyways, Lions Club's doing some great stuff. They're very dedicated to this community, and you'll probably hear me again come up and talk more about the hearing and eyesight at another time, but wanted to share with you this great program. Thank you.
Thanks, Carter. Any other public comment this evening? Anybody online? Nope. All right. Moving on to communications from our volunteer boards. Are there any volunteer board reports in the audience? Not seeing any. Any online? Any from council? Rebecca?
Yeah, just the tree committee is moving. We're not going to be meeting in October, but we're going to be meeting in November to walk the Caro Avenue. And then this isn't actually a committee report, kind of, but we're hiring a historian named Delia Hagen, and she's going to be doing a survey of historic residences this Thursday and Friday. So if people see a woman walking around staring at their house, you'll understand. And that will help us with the growth policy.
Thanks, Rebecca. Any other reports from staff that we need for volunteer boards? Okay. Moving on, the next item is our consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
And I second it.
Any comments or corrections? All those in favor? All those opposed, like sign. That matter passes unanimously. We have no public hearings this evening. Next, we have communications from our finance director. The annual 2024 impact fee report.
Hello, Council. Thanks. My job is to report on the annual impact fee report. I think Giuseppe serves on that committee with us. And every year, the annual impact fee report is required under the city code. And rather than go through the report in detail, I will hit the highlights and field any questions you may have come up with from reviewing the report. As you are aware, it was time to do another impact fee study, and the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, after performing the RFP process, selected Tischler Buys to prepare an updated impact fee study to more accurately reflect the current growth and expansion needs of the city. That report was finalized and approved by the council in October of 2023 with an effective date of January 1, 2024. Impact fees for City Hall, paved trail, the park maintenance building, the emergency services center, and stormwater were all accounted for in one impact fee fund. Sewer and water impact fees were reflected in their own enterprise funds. The first part of the annual report reports on the cash balance and revenues and expenses of the impact fees collected and reported respectively in this fund. Cash reserves for each impact fee increased in fiscal year 24 over the prior year. While increasing cash reserves is appropriate when projects are planned within a reasonable time frame, it is generally accepted that the revenue generated from impact fees be spent within 5 to 10 years. This generally accepted practice is based on developers paying impact fees to help fund capital improvements directly related to their development's increased demand on public facilities. For the revenues portion, Whitefish has seen a decrease in building activity due to increased building costs and higher interest rates. And overall, there has been a decrease in both fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24 impact fee revenues in each category. Total impact fees collected in fiscal year 24 in this fund, excluding interest earned, were 28% of budgeted revenue. It is important to note that collections for impact fees in this fund ceased as of January 1, 2024, and this also contributed significantly to the reduction in collections for fiscal year 24. As anticipated and as reflected on page 4 of the report, water and wastewater impact fees also saw a decrease in revenue from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24 by 38.7% and 35% respectively. Expenditures are reflected on page 6 of the report, and it outlines the allowable uses of impact fees. Impact fees may be spent for public improvements, including but not limited to planning, land acquisition, right-of-way acquisition, site improvements, necessary off-site improvements, construction, engineering, architectural services, permitting, financing, and administrative expenses, applicable impact fees or mitigation costs, and any other expenses that can be capitalized with a useful life of 10 years or more. Impact fees may also be used to recoup public improvement costs previously incurred by the city to the extent that new growth and development will be served by the previously constructed improvements or incurred costs. In fiscal year 24, only a small expenditure of $372 was made in the stormwater improvements as part of the Monaghan Street construction project. No impact fee costs were incurred for the Parks Maintenance Building, City Hall, Emergency Services Center, or paved trails in fiscal year 24. In the water fund, however, $78,442 was spent on the South Water Storage and Production Project, which allows for 42.9% of project fees to be paid from water impact fees. And additional expenditures for this project are expected in fiscal year 25. As stated on the above new impact in the report, a new impact fee study was approved and new impact fees were adopted with Ordinance 2323, which became effective on January 1, 2024. New funds were created for each of the impact fees that would be collected going forward. Water, wastewater, city hall, paved trail impact fees remain, and the ESC impact fee has been separated out to reflect an impact fee for fire and ambulance and police. The stormwater impact fee has been eliminated due to limited expansion projects on the horizon. Additionally, state statute will come into play once the city of Whitefish reaches a population of 10,000 or more, and the municipal separate storm sewer system permit is required, which will result in the creation of a charge for the utility, much like water and sewer. The park maintenance impact fee has been revised as a parks and recreation impact fee to address growth-related park improvement projects. Below, or on, I think, page 5, is a table showing the new impact fees and their corresponding fund numbers and 6 months of accumulated revenue in fiscal year 24 from January 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2024. As you may have noticed in your budget documents, there are these separate funds to track and record revenues and expenses for each fee. Since the collection of these funds only began halfway through fiscal year 24, the half-year collections of each respective impact fee is reflected on that table on page 5. As for the new funds that have been created for these new fees, the impact fees in the impact fee study adopted in the fall of 2023, it will take time to accumulate funds for future projects. When applicable, funds in the 2399 impact fee fund, that's the original fund that housed all of them together, will be utilized first or in conjunction with revenues from the new applicable funds. Fiscal year 2025 budget has also accounted for a continued decline in building activity, and that's pretty much the culmination of the report. The Impact Fee Advisory Committee met on September 12th to review the report and moved to approve the report for council's approval of this annual report.
Thank you, ma'am. Any question for Laney on our report? Yeah, Giuseppe.
Just a quick question. Are we still on track in discussing to add the transportation component to the impact fees? As that would be next year exercise.
At the September 12th meeting, we actually met with Colin McEweeny from Tischler Buys, who we did contract for a transportation fee study, and he worked extensively with Craig just prior to that meeting, and so that work has begun for the study. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Giuseppe. And as a member of the committee, Giuseppe, do you have any comments that you want to add?
The comments I have to add is that I joined the committee when we started with the new firm, and I think the group, not the committee, but the group, the working staff and the consultants have done a great job of getting a structure in place that is clean, auditable, calculatable, and I thought we missed the transportation, which is a big chunk, and now I'm very excited that we're going to go 360 with this implementation. So I'm very pleased with it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Giuseppe. Any other comments? Great. Do you need any, we received the report, do you need any action from us?
We need to move, I would move to approve the report.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any further comments? All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
Deputy Mayor, who was the second? Who seconded that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next, we're up for communications from our city manager, Dana.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and City Council. In the packet, you have my manager's report. I'll just highlight one thing on that report for the public, that City Hall will be closed on Monday for Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. I also have two updates. One is that the fire department is hosting an open house on October 19th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. families, kids, all invited to see our emergency response vehicles, including our new fire engine. There will be hot dogs and face painting and safety instructions for Halloween, as well as safety, or let me see, high-vis trick-or-treat bags and some glow-in-the-dark stuff to keep kids well-lit during Halloween. So we encourage people to come to that. And then at the work session, you heard about our Safe Streets for All open house that will be held tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. here at City Hall. So encouraging the public also to come attend that as well.
Rebecca?
Did you or Michelle want to tell the public about Civic Ready?
We'll be getting ready to roll that out here soon. We'll
Okay.
issue a press release and get that information
Okay.
out. So, but if you do visit our website, you will see a notification that pops up that allows you to sign up for notifications from the city via text, and we'll get more information out here soon.
And just because I had a good time the last time I went to this, the open house at the fire department, how is that being advertised so that the general public knows about it?
I know it's out on Facebook. We'll get it up on the city's website tomorrow. Cole, do you have any other plans for advertising?
Okay, that's great, thanks. Next up, I think we've got here. Consideration to appoint a selection committee for the lobbying services for the 2025 legislative session.
Great. In the packet, you have my staff report. So the 2025 Montana legislative session is coming up, and in preparation, we are seeking proposals from qualified consulting firms to assist us in our legislative efforts as a lobbyist. Our former lobbyist is no longer within the state of Montana, so we are not able to continue services with Robin of Turner Strategies. So the RFP was issued on September 23rd, and we have a submittal date of October 23rd. We expect interviews to take place the first week of November, around November 4th or so. We are looking to have a selection committee to include myself, City Attorney Jacobs, and one elected official. This contract does not necessarily meet our requirements for a selection committee, but given the importance of this individual who will be, or consulting firm that will be representing the city, I felt that it is important that we have a selection committee this time. Our budget appropriates about $28,000 for lobbying services for the session, but a formal discussion on the financial requirements and the contract award will come to the council at a later meeting. So staff respectfully recommends City Council appoint City Attorney Jacobs and myself, and select one elected official to participate on the rating panel and selection committee for lobbying services for the 2025 Montana legislative session.
I'll take a little bit of a moving oar on this. I would move that we appoint City Attorney Jacobs and City Manager Smith to this appointment. I would also recommend that, I have not talked to the mayor, but this seems to be a committee that I personally would like to see him participate on if he has the time and is available. I volunteer him. Okay. Okay, and I would also volunteer as well, so we'll have that discussion if he can't. But okay. That's what I would move, and with that motion, is there a second?
I second it, Frank.
Great. All those in favor? You have your orders. Okay. Okay, this next one is a resolution approving a First Amendment to a license agreement with Gold Creek Cellular.
So in January of 2018, the City Council approved a license agreement with Gold Creek Cellular of Montana Limited Partnership. In other words, Verizon Wireless. So we'll refer to them as Verizon going forward. But that agreement allows Verizon to install and maintain its wireless service facilities at our Emergency Services Center through May 31st of 2028. They actually did an addition to the building to accommodate those facilities. The original license agreement requires that Verizon pay rent in the amount of $18,000 for the first year, and it had a 4% increase each year through the 10-year term. So we're collecting more than the $18,000 for fiscal year '25. It does prohibit Verizon from interfering with the city's existing use or equipment at the ESC, and requires our notification and approval of certain modifications to the equipment that they have. In July of this year, they reached out to myself, and I brought in Angie to discuss their proposal. Their initial proposal was they wanted to amend our license agreement to provide a lower rent than currently paid, with only a 3% escalator every year for 5 additional terms of 5 years with an immediate effective date. So before our current lease was up. We worked with them and said, that's not going to be palatable. We finally got to where we feel is reasonable request. It is their bottom line. They have shared with me that they have cell towers going up along Highway 93, and for us to keep our facility, them to continue to use this facility, we really need to get this amendment approved expeditiously, and that it is their best and final offer, so to speak. So what the amendment that you have before you does is it includes, after the expiration of our current license agreement, starting June 1st of 2028, there will be a new 5-year term, and then they will have the option to renew the agreement for 3 additional 5-year terms for a total of 20 years. Rent will actually be reduced from the amount that will be due at the end of the agreement of $25,619 to $23,300, starting June 1st of 2028, and will increase at 4% each year through 2033, and then any subsequent term that they choose to renew. All of the other requirements stay the same. I should make a point that when they first had a request, they wanted to be able to do whatever they wanted with the equipment that's in place without any of our approval. That is not included in this amendment. We still have that approval authority. So while it's an unusual thing to consider a reduction in rent at this time and this day, I think that they are looking for savings over time, and over that 10-year, if we were to look at the current license agreement and what it would provide for those 20 years, if we were to extend it at the current rate with a 4% increase every year, we would collect about $793,000. Their proposal is reducing it down to $693,000, so about $100,000 less than what we would get if we just extended the current agreement. But again, they said they would not agree to that. So I do believe that it is in the best interest to approve the First Amendment to the license agreement with Gold Creek Cellular of Montana, doing business as Verizon Wireless. Moving forward, this is funding that we do use in our property tax supported funds, so roughly 0.29 mils, I'm just happy. So we do have that in there. But I do want to make a point. There are a few typos in my report where it changed it to version instead of Verizon, so know that those should read Verizon. But I am respectfully recommending that the City Council adopts this resolution approving the First Amendment to the license agreement with Gold Creek Cellular of Montana Limited Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, and authorizing the city manager to execute the amendment.
Any questions for Dana on her report?
You said that they wanted to be able to pull any of their equipment at any time without our permission, but we now have control over that. But isn't it their equipment?
So to amend the equipment, so to modify or add equipment within the facility, they do have to seek approval.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Other than the funding aspect of this thing, is there any other benefit to the ESC or to the city to having this tower at that site?
You know, I think it does provide certain coverage for Verizon cell phone holders within the city of Whitefish. It is a high point that does provide that coverage. If we were to not renew, they would find a location likely on private property that would have something else go up. So aesthetically, it's probably a nicer way to have their equipment.
Right.
And it hasn't caused issues to date.
But is there any, do we get any better
Great.
service, security, or anything else as a result of having that tower there as opposed to anyplace else?
No, their system is completely on its own up there, so it doesn't benefit the city specifically other than the rent payment.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion if there are no more questions.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I move to approve the, what is it called, lease agreement in your report?
License agreement.
License agreement.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Norton. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Next item is communications from a mayor and city councilor, but it's a resolution, I guess, 24-45, amending our annual goals for the city, page 121. That's what I mean. It's like, okay. No staff report. Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded. Moved by Councilor Quinnell, seconded by Councilor Caltabiano. And any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Matter passes unanimously as well. Next up is a consideration to appoint a member of the Whitefish Housing Authority member at large to complete a term ending on 12/31/26. We interviewed Nick Farmer during the September 16th, 2024 meeting, and the mayor has given me authority to make that choice. I would move, with your consent, I would move to appoint Nick Farmer to the board, to that board. So done. Okay. And then we have, finally have a letter from Pat Terrell concerning tree removal near the stormwater pond in Riverside Park. Yes,
I can provide some comment on that. I did
Yeah.
receive from Maria, so that you guys have that information. So staff, so this is just going to address some of the different issues that she brought up regarding beaver activity. We have seen beaver activity on Golden Willows around Riverside Park, Kay Beller Park, Roundhouse Landing, and near the Duck Inn. Beavers tend to eat whatever is available to them, and so they're not specific species of trees that they will go to. Caging trees is often what we do to protect them from beaver activity, and all newly planted trees around Riverside Park will be protected with that caging. Every tree is susceptible to disease. They intend to monitor the newly planted trees to make sure they have the best chance for success. Golden willows are susceptible to ice and windstorm damage, along with multiple pest problems. A few common ones are aphids, black canker, I don't know, other insects. Just leave it at that. On the second page where she has provided photos, the tree specifically that appears to be regrowing, it was damaged by an early snowstorm 2 years ago. Staff was able to perform maintenance on the tree. When they were able, they found birds nesting in it for birds nesting in numerous holes. As it did not pose any hazards, they left it standing for a bird habitat. However, since they've noticed that it began to sucker out and regrow, they have placed it on the removal list and will make sure no birds are harmed in the process of removal. The logs that are in the river, those were left by Flathead Electric Cooperative after they had completed some trimming under power lines. Logs do create natural habitat for fish, amphibians, and other wildlife, and they provide food for aquatic insects and microinvertebrates, which are an important part of the fish diet, so those will not be removed. The golden willows, one of the challenges, because those are the trees being taken out, when they are cut, they grow weak and brittle limbs that grow outward instead of upward, and so it's very difficult to maintain the proper structure of a willow tree. And then also on that third page, the stump, it was not treated. It was part of a larger limb connected to a living willow. They did not treat the stump as it would have killed the rest of the trees. So this tree is one of the trees slated for removal in this project. All of the stumps in the Riverside Pond project will be treated to prevent them from suckering out. And the project engineer is supportive of leaving the stumps for bank stabilization. So those are just some comments from our Parks and Recs department regarding her concerns.
Are those going to be sent to Pat?
We can, if you'd like us to, I can have,
There's no reason not to.
okay,
It's like,
I'll have Maria do so and write that
If
up.
nothing else, if nothing else, I think it's important that we respond to direct letters like that to the extent we can.
Yep.
Whether they like it or not, at least we've addressed it. That's what I like.
Okay, thank you.
With that, there's nothing left on our agenda other than councilor comments. I'll start with Rebecca. Nothing for Rebecca? Giuseppe, anything this evening?
Yes, just two comments. One is shop talk. Since we've been informed that we won't be able to implement the viaduct project as we thought because of the bid coming at twice the cost that we budgeted, I would invite to have a work session and discuss the possibility of approaching it in an open thinking way where, because we have an underpass that cost us $1.7 million, considering to make a 10-feet wide path on the east side of the viaduct and make it nice with only one path, keeping still 3 lanes in case of emergency on the viaduct, and letting people use the underpass if they want to go from one side or the other of the viaduct, rather than pursuing the 2 paths 10 feet wide each that is becoming now year number 4 that we're discussing this matter. So that was an invitation to eventually consider re-looking at the project, given that we are at this point. And then I have another one, but if we want to comment on this, I'm okay with that.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Have we already paid for all the engineering and design for everything on the viaduct improvement?
Yeah, we have.
Okay, so just going back to the drawing board right now, what's your take on that?
To redesign the project with a path on one side, redo the drawings and rebid. I mean, we're already going to rebid, so I'd estimate probably $10,000 or so.
Okay, out of a total budget of
About
700.
700.
Okay, so that's not a big number compared to the overall cost. of the
No,
project.
it's not a big number, but if we're going to make a change in scope that drastic, I think we would have to go back to the public. I mean, we used a design from the downtown master plan, which went through a pretty extensive public process. And so, the last update to the public was that we're following that design. So I think to change it, we'd at least want to go back to a council work session to discuss it.
Okay, and then just refresh my memory about once we have 2 10-foot pedestrian paths, one on either side, do we still have room for 3 lanes to get across that viaduct?
We will, yeah. There's still going to be 8-foot shoulders between the 2 12-foot travel lanes. And so we will ultimately, if we eliminate the shoulders, have room for a temporary 3-lane scenario.
Okay, so,
I mean, it would take, law enforcement and, emergency services and temporary traffic control, but in any scenario where we're doing an evacuation, that's obviously going to be in place.
those people would all be there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and it would likely be 2 southbound lanes and 1 eastbound emergency only lane, because we're not going to let the traveling public, 1 northbound emergency only lane.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Giuseppe, I'm not totally against it, I just don't know. This whole thing has turned into a giant mess, like a couple of things that we've been involved in recently in my time up here. And some of it's, not all of it's our fault. I like you think that I think we could do a better design, but I'm also I think we've also have we have a design that the people want, and that's been vetted, and I think we should just stick with that.
Second comment, it's more happy news and light news. Even if it's not within the city limits, I'd like to share with the public that the Museum of Mountain Flying and Glacier Park International Airport have signed a lease agreement for land to build the Glacier Aviation Campus. So this is a new vocational school that will be appearing in the first lot of land as you drive south on the highway from the Blue Moon. When you see the runway to the right, that empty lot before that hangar with the big American flag is the lot slated for the Museum of Mountain Flying / Glacier Aviation Campus. So we're looking at creating curricula for vocational classes for airplane mechanics and avionics engineers. We already have 50 positions asked for by a number of companies that span between Great Falls and Coeur d'Alene, and they cannot find employees. And fun news, Miss Montana, which is our state aircraft, will live there 6 months. I'm fighting for 6 months and 1 day out of the year. But even more fun news, the museum just acquired the A-26 Invader, which is a twin-engine World War II bomber that was used for the ones who saw it in the movie Always. So firefighters around and jumpers have seen and loved that movie, Out of Libby. We bought that plane, and the last one we're trying to negotiate to take the tower, the lookout tower that the movie producers built in Libby. I don't know if you've seen it at the airport, and sky crane it here to put it as a symbol at the entrance of the museum. And the last one was talking to the architects who designed the terminal. They have offered pro bono their services to design and create the renderings for the museum. And 2 days ago, we announced it. We already raised almost $200,000 out of $4 million that we expect to raise in the next 2 years. So anybody interested in sending kids, involving schools, reach out to me or to the Museum of Mountain Flying. And it's exciting news for the Valley. Thank you.
It is good news. Steve? I have nothing either this evening. I'm looking forward to having the mayor back, and Andy and Ben as well. And with that, I think we're adjourned.
Not good enough for you?